Good morning. Good morning, Sabak Akai. Good morning, distinguished guests, the Honorable Financial Secretary. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Sylvia Chen from HKEX, Head of International Business Relations at the CEO Office. Before we proceed with today's program, I would like to take a moment to thank you for gracing us with your presence today. We're truly honored to have such esteemed guests among us in this beautiful morning in Riyadh. Today's event is about exploring the tremendous opportunities in the Middle East and in Asia, and Hong Kong's role as a super connector between the two regions. HKEX will also unveil exciting business updates that underscores our continued commitment to the region. Now, without further ado, let us kick off the program. I would like to invite Mr. Carlson Tong, Chairman of HKEX, to give us a welcome address. Carlson, please, thank you.
Financial Secretary, Honorable Mr. Paul Chan, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. And thank you all for joining us at HKEX FII Breakfast. This is my first time to attend FII in my new role as Chairman of HKEX. It is exciting to be here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia during this time of change. In fact, to confess, this is the first time I've been here, and I'm learning a lot, and I'm really marveling at the change the country has gone through. And I look forward to working more closely with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and all the officials and the help we got from our friends. I want to thank you all for helping us making this, our attendance at FII, my personal first attendance at FII, such a success. So thank you very much to our friends in Saudi Arabia. It is exciting to be here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, as I said, during this time of change, and a time of deepening connectivity between the markets of East Asia and the Middle East. We've invited you here today to discuss opportunities that are evolving between China and the Middle East, and to explore the role of Hong Kong's capital markets in connecting the two regions. This is actually the continuation of conversation that first started here at FII in 2022, 2 years ago, when Hong Kong Exchange first participated. This is our third attendance, and as I say, my first attendance. A conversation that has evolved into a growing relationship between our two regions. A conversation that's built infrastructure, connections, and trust, which is most important. We've signed an MOU with our friends of Saudi Tadawul Group and have added them as a recognized stock exchange, which opened the door for dual listing. And I spoke to my friend at Saudi Tadawul Stock Exchange, and he promised me there are news to come, so I look forward to it. My friend there. We've also added the Abu Dhabi Securities Exchange and the Dubai Financial Markets as recognized stock exchanges. We've launched the world's biggest and Asia's first Saudi-focused ETF listing in Hong Kong in 2023. This is being reciprocated, obviously, this week with Hong Kong-focused ETFs in Saudi Arabia. Our subsidiary, the London Metal Exchange, is making headway in establishing Jeddah as an LME warehouse location. And we have continuously enhanced dialogue and understanding between the stakeholders in our respective regions, bringing the first FII project to Asia and the Capital Markets Forum to Hong Kong. Well, today, we're announcing a new milestone in the growing connectivity between Hong Kong and the Middle East, a significant milestone in terms of capital markets connectivity of our two regions. I'm delighted to share with you that next year, HKEX will open an office, its first office in the Middle East, and we will open that office right here in Riyadh. This will make it even more easier for investors in the Middle East to access Asia's most international, diverse, and liquid markets. It signifies Hong Kong's commitment in its role as a super connector between the markets of China and the Middle East. More details on this will follow in due course. And another announcement, if I may, just this morning, the LME announced the listing of two LME licensed warehouses in Jeddah. This will be effective from 30th January 2025. I look forward to more traveling coming to this part of the world in the future. This announcement further demonstrates Saudi Arabia's increasingly important role as a global metals and logistic hub. And we're committed to evolving the LME warehouse network to provide maximum global connectivity for the metals industry. Well, looking ahead, there'll be much more for our new office in Riyadh to do. China represents significant long-term opportunities to Middle Eastern investors at a time when this region is embarking on ambitious economic diversification plans. China's commitment to innovation, sustainability, and financial opening make the world's second largest economy a major driver of the global megatrends that will create long-term growth opportunities. Welcome, Richard. Hi. Thank you for inviting us to the FII again, Richard. Thank you very much. And Hong Kong is uniquely placed to connect international investors with mainland China and vice versa. That brings me back to today's event. We're very fortunate to have a panel of heavyweight speakers, really heavyweight speakers, representing both regions as well as global perspectives. They will share with us their insights into the wider landscape and opportunities and trends they are seeing. My thanks to each of them for taking part today. I would also like to thank our friends in the Middle East for the enthusiasm with which they've partnered with us since we turned up at FII in 2022. There's clearly a prevalence of vision, passion, and commitment to economic development and progress in this region. This is very familiar to us in Hong Kong and mainland China, and it has made it so much easier to have a productive conversation. Obviously, we're very excited about our plans to a new office in Riyadh, and you'll be seeing a lot more of us. So I'll wrap up here and let the rest of the event get underway. Thank you again for coming, and thanks to all our speakers for their contribution to today's discussion. Please enjoy the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlson. This is very exciting news instead. Now, with great pleasure, we would like to introduce Mr. Paul Chen, the Honorable Financial Secretary of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, to the stage for the keynote address. Mr. Paul Chen, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Carlson, Bill, Daryl, Bonnie, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a great pleasure to join you today at this important breakfast session hosted by the Hong Kong HKEX, right at the heart of FII. Before we begin, I want to extend my appreciation to the Hong Kong Stock Exchange for organizing this session, and to FII for providing a forum that brings global leaders together to address the future of investment. My special thanks to Mohammed, CEO of Saudi Exchange, and Bill, Global CEO of Standard Chartered, for joining the panel. There couldn't be a better time for us to gather and discuss how we can strengthen our capital markets connectivity. The transformative agenda set forth by Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 seeks to foster a dynamic society through extensive infrastructure projects, green transition, and digitalization. This ambitious vision is driving significant reforms across various sectors, positioning the kingdom as a leader in economic diversification and innovation. In light of the evolving geopolitical landscape and shifting global economic gravity, Saudi Arabia and the broader Middle East are actively deploying their capital towards Asia. In this context, Hong Kong emerged as a pivotal player, serving as an international financial center and a gateway to China and the wider Asian markets. Hong Kong's unique strengths are anchored in the one country, two systems arrangement, which China has committed to maintain over the long run. This arrangement allows Hong Kong to benefit from both the advantages of being part of China and the defining characteristics as an international city. We enjoy convenience and at times privileged access to the mainland market, while retaining our distinctive features, including a common law system, an independent judiciary, the free flow of capital, goods, talent, and data, a low and simple tax regime, and a currency pegged to the US dollar. Hong Kong is one of the top 3 international financial centers globally, alongside New York and London. We have also been recently recognized by the Fraser Institute as the fierce economy in the world. Our world-class professional services adhere to the highest international standards, bolstered by a wealth of international experience and extensive connections. In short, Hong Kong presents unique advantages that can create significant value for Middle Eastern investors and capital. Hong Kong is an attractive destination for investment and collaboration, particularly in such areas as fundraising, asset and wealth management, and green and sustainable finance. Allow me to elaborate a little bit. First, our fundraising market. We serve as a prime connector between the capital markets of the mainland and the rest of the world. Our stock market has a market cap of over $4.5 trillion, which is 12 times of our GDP. And despite the challenging times we went through in 2023 and the earlier part of this year, Hong Kong is coming back, particularly following the recent announcement of a stimulus package by the central authorities, aiming at injecting liquidities into the banking sector and supporting the mainland's real estate sector. Since then, the market has increased by more than 15% with very high volume. We have seen strong buying interest from American and European investors, who together accounted for approximately 85% of the buy side by value. Notably, 90% of these investors are long-term funds and investment banks. Over the years, we have continuously reformed our listing platform. These reforms have broadened our market's appeal and positioned Hong Kong as a leading listing hub for innovative enterprises. For example, we are now the second largest biotech fundraising hub after the United States. Our country, China, has consistently supported the development of Hong Kong's capital markets. Just this April, the China Securities Regulatory Commission announced 5 measures to bolster the development of Hong Kong's capital markets, including, for example, expanding the connect schemes we have with the mainland to cover more ETFs and REITs, and facilitating the listing of major mainland companies on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. By the way, we are also actively enhancing our connectivity with new markets, as alluded earlier on by Carlson, with this part of the world, increasing the connectivity, but also with other markets along the Belt and Road region, like Indonesia. The upcoming of 2 ETFs investing in Hong Kong on the Saudi Exchange will be further reinforcing the links we have with Saudi Arabia. But beyond our stock market, we also enjoy a very vibrant private equity sector, which manage over $230 billion in assets, making us second in Asia just behind the mainland. Indeed, Hong Kong has a comprehensive chain of funds supporting companies at various development stages. Looking to the future, our stock market is poised to grow deeper and more robust. We are determined to attract more quality issuers from around the group and new capital sources, particularly from the Middle East and Asia. Second, about the asset and wealth management sector. Many Middle Eastern families and ultra-high net individuals are increasingly recognizing the need to diversify their asset allocation and look beyond traditional American and European markets. They can certainly look to Hong Kong. We manage over $4 trillion in assets, with more than half coming outside Hong Kong and mainland China. We are also home to 2,700 single family offices, half of them managing each over $50 million in assets. Beyond diversified investment offerings, we have established a robust network for family companies, comprising private banks, professional service providers. They together form a very strong nexus that caters to the needs of family companies, family offices. This is further complemented by our very strong philanthropic culture and programs for families to leave a lasting legacy, making a difference in the world and shaping a better future for our future generations. And finally, green and sustainable finance. Ladies and gentlemen, as a key component of Vision 2030, Saudi Arabia has embarked on the Saudi Green Initiative with clear targets to increase the share of renewable energy, reduce carbon emissions, and enhance land and sea protection. This vision resonates with us well, and we stand ready to contribute. Hong Kong is Asia's green finance capital, demonstrated by our leading position in arranging green and sustainable debts, averaging over $60 billion a year over the past 3 years, accounting for over 1/3 of Asia's total. Beyond volume, we are committed to building a green financial reporting system that meets the highest international standards by adopting taxonomies interoperable with other international classification networks and adhering to the global sustainable standards. Clearly, Hong Kong is an ideal platform for Saudi and Middle Eastern companies and their sustainable projects looking to access funds in our part of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I have just outlined some of the areas that Hong Kong can play in connecting capital, investment, and opportunities between our markets. I'm eager to hear the valuable insights from our panelists this morning on how our capital markets can further collaborate and innovate. I wish you all the best of health and business in the coming years, and enjoy the inspiring discussions that follows. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Po Chen. Mr. Po Chen, would you please stay on the stage? We're going to do a very quick group photo. Can you stay in the middle of the stage? I would like to invite the following guests to join FS. Mr. Carlson Tong, HKEX Chairman, Ms. Bonnie Chen, HKEX CEO, Mr. Richard Atias, CEO of FII, and Mr. Rakan Tarabzoni, FII COO, to the stage, please. Thank you. Okay, so Mr. Paul Chen, Carlson, and Bonnie, please remain on the stage. And I would like to invite more Hong Kong guests to join us for another group photo. Can we please have Ms. Julia Liang from the SFC CEO, Mr. Darrell Chen, HKMA Deputy CE, Ms. Laura Cha, Senior Advisor of HKEX, Mr. Apur Bagri, HKEX INED, and Ms. Lisa Leong, HKEX INED. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you so much. Now, Bonnie, we would like to have you to remain on the stage, please.
Yeah. Oh, just one more.
All right, so for the next session, we'll have a very exciting panel moderated by Ms. Bonnie Chen, the CEO of Hong Kong Stock Exchange. The panel will be around 25 to 30 minutes. Now, will we please invite our dearest panelist, Mr. Mohammed Alumni, our dearest friends from the CEO of the Saudi Exchange, as well as Mr. Dara Chen, Deputy Group Chief Executive of HKMA, and Mr. Bill Winters, CEO of the Standard Chartered, onto the stage, please. Thank you. Bonnie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sylvia. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this morning. I know we started very early. I'm very excited and extremely privileged to have these three gentlemen on my panel. They bring obviously a great wealth of experience and knowledge on the topic that we're going to be discussing. And as our chairman, Carlson, stated in this morning's remarks, we're here to discuss the opportunities that we are seeing evolving between East Asia and the Middle East, and to explore the role of capital markets in connecting these two regions. It is obviously a great topic, one with great interest to the global financial community. Now, and earlier, Carlson mentioned the exciting news that we are going to open an office here in Riyadh, and we are really looking forward to having a stronger presence here. So I am going to ask our panelists to explore the role of capital markets in driving cross-border connectivity and how specifically this connectivity is going to ultimately support the Saudi Vision 2030, new waves of innovation, and I know it's a topic dear to the heart of Bill, the transition to a net zero economy. So let's get started. So perhaps we will start with talking about something which obviously continues to occupy a lot of our thoughts, the ongoing macroeconomic and geopolitical uncertainty. I'll start with the money man, Darrell, okay? So Hong Kong is an international financial center, and therefore we're very exposed to these trends, macroeconomic situations, as well as geopolitical uncertainty. How are you going to evaluate the current state of global economy and more specifically our region? And how do you see that impact our cross-border capital flow and investment?
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. It's great to be here at FLY. We started early in the morning, so maybe we should start with some good news. And the good news is, I think the monetary easing in the developed countries has been quite helpful in shaping the macro backdrop for the world economy. I was at the World Bank and IMF meeting last week, and it was actually a sigh of relief that, well, finally, it seems that global efforts to tackle inflation has been, well, so far quite successful. And that's a welcome sign. So in IMF's own estimation, they are forecasting world economy growth of about 3.2% for this year and for next year. And emerging and developing Asia will remain to be the bright spot. Again, so the forecast is about 4.2% for this year and for next year. So I think the overall backdrop, I would try to characterize it in the words of the IMF, which is stable, although it's a bit underwhelming as we compare to the heydays. Now, coming back to the region, the monetary easing in developed economies is also helpful because, in a way, it provides more autonomy for central banks in the region to actually formulate their own monetary policy that is more in tune with their own local situation, and that's a welcome sign. So what we are seeing is actually now renewed fund flow coming into the region. That's demonstrated by some high-frequency fund flow data. And of course, when talking about Asia, we cannot, China will become very big, a topic. I think the recent stimulus package, as announced by the central government, which aims to, well, first of all, stabilize the property market, and then also address the potential risk of the local government debt issue, and also to address the this inflationary or deflationary pressure in the mainland. I think all these are very forceful measures, and then very encouraging. So that would actually help stabilize the sentiment in the market about China's growth story. And to that effect, we have been seeing that a very strong rebound in the market. So if the Hong Kong stock index, Hang Seng index can be taken as a proxy of China, then it has been performing exceptionally well. But this year, it has bounced back by over 20%. I think it is one of the best performing stock markets. And then just in the past month or so, as the financial secretary has just alluded to, I mean, it has risen by 13 to 15%, which is good. Transaction volume also grow. I think that's a good news to your stock price, and also some good news for the financial secretary, because in a way, the stamp duty will help with our fiscal situation. So I think we are seeing all these encouraging signs. But of course, there are still risk factors that we have to watch out. I mean, inflation, whether we will actually land at a pretty or more longer-term normal level, we have yet to see. And there are geopolitics, as you just mentioned. And of course, to that level, that's also something that the global financial community is also watching very closely. And of course, in the near term, it will be the elections in the US and whatever the outcome, how that might affect the global economy as well as the financial market. So a lot of uncertainty still out there, but I guess we just have to manage them.
Yeah, thank you, Darryl. It's I think risk aside, it's good to be starting the day with some sort of positivity. So thank you for that. Let me turn to Bill. I know you addressed the same subject very recently at Sibos. And you specifically spoke about the change in trade flows. Can I ask you to elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of references, even in these last couple of days in Riyadh, to deglobalization. I just don't see it. So we're not deglobalizing. Globalization is changing its nature for a bunch of reasons that have nothing to do with geopolitics, and some reasons that have something to do with geopolitics. So we know that it's quite natural that the manufacturing hub of the world, China, would evolve from being a low-cost manufacturer to a high-value manufacturer, would shift from manufactured goods to services, and would develop its own circular economy with a growing consumer class in China. These are all totally independent of the global geopolitics. And then throw on top of that COVID-related supply chain disruptions, which heightened vulnerability and security issues for many manufacturers around the world, including Chinese manufacturers. And then obviously the crossfire of tariffs and sanctions. And you get some shifts. Certainly from our perspective at Standard Chartered, what we're seeing is a dramatic increase in intra-Asian flow, or in many cases what's referred to as South-South, which I think is, I don't know who made up that phrase. It doesn't mean anything, but we know what it means. South-South flow, which is growing quite nicely. The trade between Asia and Europe and America isn't reducing. It's just not growing as quickly as it had. But that's fine, and this is part of the natural evolution of things. So I think what we have to really focus on is how we retain the value from globalization, and how, as we go into this next round of globalization, we don't leave people behind the way we left them behind last time. Because we're getting this massive populist backlash in Europe and America, and in some other places, coming from the fact that a very large middle class was displaced for a period of time. That has electoral consequences and obviously feeds into the overall level of discord in the system. So as we just are thoughtful about getting the best of globalization, it has lifted a couple of billion people out of poverty. Let's not forget that. This is a hugely good thing for the global community. Let's do it in a way that's fair, that's transparent, that's rooting out financial crime in every way that we can, because that's the best way to make sure that it remains fair. Then I think we'll all benefit.
That's great. So we should change the prefix from de-globalization to re-globalization, shall we not?
We heard it here first. Bonnie, it's your line.
It's my line. Let me pose the same question to Mohammed. We look at macroeconomics issues and geopolitical ones, from our vantage point, in our region. How about, the Middle East? What are you seeing, from your vantage point on those two topics? And for those of us in the audience who are so keen to explore opportunities here, what should they be mindful of?
Sure, Bonnie. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for not asking me on the global macroeconomics. I think we have people here who have more experience and knowledge. So I'll focus on the Middle East, more specifically on GCC and Saudi. But regardless where do you stand, I think everyone sees that there is a global economic volatility. However, here in Saudi has presented itself with a resilient economy as a bright spot, land of opportunities. And that happened because of the many changes everyone can see and feel. The rigorous regulatory framework, the diversified investment opportunities. And if we focus and zoom in, for example, on Tadawul Shares Index last year gained 14% compared to MSCI emerging markets 9.8. On a wider time frame, 5 years, TASI CAGR was 8%, beating many emerging markets. And you rightly said it's a re-globalization, and I think investors are getting smarter. They have better tools, better systems, and they can digest the wealth of information that's coming from everywhere and decide where is the best investment opportunity out there, depending on your risk appetite and your strategy. But without being a bias, if you look at a country where it has a great geographical location, vast lands, rich in natural resources, youth nation, majority under the age of 35, low inflation rate, currency backed to dollar, low GDP or debt to GDP, opening its arms for investments and businesses, and most importantly, strong, stable, ambitious leadership with a vision, with a clear roadmap. So no wonder why the foreign investments have grown 5 times from around 20 billion back in 2018 to more than 100 billion US dollar. This is only in TASI. And you would think maybe we'll reach this size, it will slow down. It's actually accelerating despite what's going on in the Middle East. Now we're seeing maybe it will slow down a bit, but as long as the attention release, it grow even faster. And our role in the capital market, we are providing the investors with new stories every day. So, and especially when it comes to listed company. So we've been increasing the number of listed companies by 15 to 20% a year, which is a huge thing. I mean, not becoming only one of the top 10 in terms of market cap, one of the most active markets globally. And this will continue because we have a strong pipeline. This is only from local businesses. And now we are looking into cross-listing and having listings from companies all around the world. So I think Saudi has presented itself as a great investment destination. Everyone seeing the value as we go throughout the vision and we being serious and all the changes that we promised are taking place. So I think the GCC and Saudi specifically are going full speed on the post-oil economy and transition to the new Saudi.
Thank you. It certainly reassures me that our decision to open an office here is the right one. With so many exciting opportunities to capture. Although I hope my chairman is not going to impose the same KPIs which Mohammed on me, because I mean we're both CEO of stock exchanges. I mean the CAGR and all the growth that he was mentioning, it's quite spectacular. So thank you for sharing that. All right, now so to capture opportunities, obviously we need the right infrastructure. We need the plumbing, right? And we're doing a lot of our guests have been working on that. There's one thing I want to perhaps double-click on, Daryl. To help bridge stakeholders in the two regions, the MA have been embarking on a lot of exciting projects, M-Bridge being one of them. Perhaps can I ask you to elaborate on what is the concept and how exactly it's going to help bridge these interconnectivity between the regions?
Okay, thank you. Now, I may just start with the prospect of perhaps goods trade between the Middle East and Asia. Now, according to one estimate, in 2022, the scale of bilateral trade between Asia and the Middle East amounted to about $1 trillion. And it is also forecast that in a decade or so, it will grow or double to about $2 trillion. And so you can see that massive potential out there in terms of the infrastructural needs in Middle East, as well as the change or relocation of the supply chain, as Bill has just mentioned. So we do expect that there's increasingly demand for the kind of fund flow between the two sort of regions along the Asia Middle East economy. And to facilitate that, I think settlement or payment is a very important aspect of it. By payment, we are not talking just about speed, because now the current cross-border payment system still has a lot of legacy issues in terms of speed, the efficiency, the cost. So what we try to do when you mention M-Bridge is the kind of project that we can make use of a central bank digital currency at a whole scale level for cross-border payment settlement. And that will actually much fasten up the speed of cross-border payment, and more importantly, lower the cost in terms of the number of intermediaries get involved. Corresponding banking, that may not be the good news to our banker friends, but I think that would be really good for the real economy. And also, it's not just about the efficiency, but just imagine the sort of DLT platform that you can build a lot of smart contracts and the preconditions and all sorts of things onto that platform, and that can be very powerful. Now, we are sort of looking at the trade finance role Hong Kong can play or continue to play as we see these global shifts of supply chain. And there's a lot of efficiency gain we can get out from there. And of course, there would be improvements to existing process and, in the banking system. But I do think that the CBDC would be a very good platform for us to bring much enhancement in the kind of a payment and settlement. So we're very excited about that. We have already a couple of partners, including those central banks from the Middle East, UAE for one, and then Saudi has also indicated that they will join the M-Bridge. So what's left is that we already entered into what we call the minimum viability product stage, which is really put it into use. And that, it's just what remains is for us to really make that happen. So it's a very exciting project.
Yes. So can I ask Bill to maybe overlay that, right, with what you are obviously also part of the ecosystem, and what do you want to see in terms of this infrastructure build out, right, to support this, cross-border connectivity?
You know, I'll pick up on you graciously noted that we may not welcome, correspondent banks may not welcome advances in the payment system. It's the opposite, actually. You know, I think so Standard Chartered was created 170 years ago, and probably every 5 years there's been some competitive threat that came in where somebody said at the time, banking business is going to disappear. You know, your flows are going to be disintermediated. So, you know, I can imagine when the telegraph was instituted, and the idea that you were shipping bankers' drafts around, you know, in container ships, was somehow going to remove our competitive advantage, and banks were going to disappear. Shockingly, 170 years later, we're still here, and I'll say doing better than ever. So, of course, there's money that's made through the inefficiency of the payment system today that benefits banks. By the way, most of it goes in expenses because it's also very inefficient for us as well. The bet that I've always made in finance is that if you can make it cheaper, faster, easier, smoother, and pass that on to customers, you'll make up for what you lose by volume, and you'll make up for what you lose by providing the services around the core service. So we're 100% behind the advances in payment technology. Now, that's not to say that banks have always been in the lead. I mean, I think banks missed a whole chapter with the advent of companies like Stripe and Adyen, fintechs, who did a brilliant job of establishing not alternative payment rails. They're still going over SWIFT, actually, but in creating a customer experience that was much better for the end user. Not necessarily cheaper, but in many cases cheaper. Okay, well, I think banks have learned a really big lesson over the past 20 years with the advent of fintech, that if we're not fintechs ourselves, innovating at the same pace, or when somebody else innovates, copying very, very fast, we're going to be displaced. And some banks will lose in that. Most banks will win. And I'm sitting here looking at my old friend Noel Quinn, who pretends to be a private citizen there, although as far as I'm concerned, he's still HSBC through and through. And you know, we've been fighting this fight, I will say together, in some ways against the new world. But of course we compete with each other from time to time as well. These banks are going to be fine because I think we recognize that the customer comes first. If we can serve the customer using the best of the technology that's out there. And with central banks like the HKMA that have been super progressive, right? And I mean, you were talking about CBDCs, but you've also had a very important program on tokenized bank deposits today, which is, to me, that's another form of central bank digital currency. It's just saying, keep the deposits in the banking system. Thank you very much. We love deposits. Very happy to retain those deposits and use that as a medium of exchange for cheap, efficient payments. This is the future, and we want to be part of it, and so far I think we are.
Yeah.
Great.
He's doing my part as well, to be promoting our Ensemble project. But I think that's really another big thing. I mean, in terms of how you mobilize deposits from commercial banks and then tokenize it, I mean, adopting the same idea of doing all these on the LT platform, and that is going to be another very exciting project going forward.
That's great. So my takeaway from that is we have to stay relevant, right? And to do that, you have to really accelerate your pace. So staying relevant brings another topic, which is diversification. Because if you want to be relevant, you cannot keep doing just the thing that you have always been doing. So I want to ask Mohammed to address diversification. And we've heard a lot about Vision 2030. And I think one overarching concept of that vision, it's really diversification. However, can I ask you to make it a little bit more multidimensional for the audience, how they should think about partaking in Vision 2030 and what exactly are the opportunities?
Yeah, certainly. But maybe to comment on the discussion between the two gentlemen.
Yes, please.
I think me and you, Bonnie, are in the good line of business. So the changes that happens, it's always represent a new investment opportunity in our market. So when it comes to diversification, it's clear that the Vision 2030 is all about sustainability, diversification, and post-oil economy. And we're proud at Saudi Exchange to be an engine driving that transition by encouraging the private companies. It's all about, if you want to reduce your reliance on oil, you need to encourage the private business or the private sector. And this is clearly stated on the Vision 2030. So what we're doing is trying to streamline the listing process. And as I've mentioned, we've been having an excellent number of listing in the past 3 years, and with a strong pipeline, over 100 are working on and trying to apply to our market, and which will help them in many ways, getting a cheap source of funding, a deep pool of liquidity to drive the growth of their businesses, and also drive more opportunities to new investors who will inject capital into our market. So this is one side. Another side is by building the infrastructure and having the innovation in place, and we have different dimensions when it comes to innovation. Innovation in providing the right tools and the products to asset managers, for example, where they can build innovative products for their clients, which will encourage them in investing more and more, because any capital markets need to be well functioned in line and in parallel with the capital system, which is very strong in Saudi. And from another dimension, the innovation, if you are a business, you have innovative business model or an idea, and you've proven your minimum viable product or a business idea, you need to have an ecosystem in place that will support you in growing from a small business to a large and maybe a multinational. And we've put this in place. We are not 100% reached to a fully functioning ecosystem when it comes to the innovation, and this also helped the diversification. And not only just that, we're looking at for example, the green bond, green financing, sustainability, because this also will put us in less reliance on oil revenue. So we are working on the capital market in many ways and trying to promote diversification and investment opportunities. And I think we are in the middle way to reach to ultimate goals. But I think the signs are great and encouraging here in Saudi. The connectivity that we are doing with other markets like yourself will help us toward more investment diversification opportunity here, and also promoting the Saudi market to international investors.
That's great. In fact, what I hear you say is sort of building out the ecosystem. And I have a feeling we've been sort of talking a lot recently that if the two exchanges join hands, we will be able to help one another sort of build out that ecosystem in a more fulsome manner, right? So we do, hopefully with the establishment of the new office, give us more opportunity to have an even closer and more constant dialogue. But Mohammed, you did mention green financing, right? And no panel is complete without talking about sustainability, green transitioning, and those related topics. And I mentioned earlier that, Bill, it's a topic I know it's dear to your heart. You've been deeply engaged in the climate finance agenda. So can I ask you about what you are seeing in terms of the role, say, for example, capital markets play in channeling those investments in sort of key priorities in that overall climate transitioning agenda?
Yeah, Bonnie, I think you and I met the first time early on. It was probably during COVID when HKEX was focusing on establishing a carbon market for China, which has subsequently happened, although I think it's at an early stage of development. The last time I sat in this exact spot on this stage was sort of a launch of the Riyadh carbon exchange, which has had two big auctions. They're about to launch a third. So the carbon markets, in China, obviously there's a government-backed compliance market in China. There's a voluntary market that's taking root in Hong Kong, although I'd say it's very early stage. There's an exchange in Riyadh. We're involved in other exchanges in Asia and around the world that are promoting a few things. But we have to be honest, that there is no global carbon market. Right? It hasn't worked yet. It has to work. It has to work in terms of getting money from the hands of people that need help to complete their net zero transition. A bank like Standard Chartered or a company like Microsoft, we were out there saying we can't reduce all of our carbon emissions, so we're going to buy credits that will fund the removal of carbon from the environment or the avoidance of carbon going into the environment. And that has to come together with the real money, which is the financing. That's also quite fragmented. If I'd make a single plea, we don't have time to get into all the gory detail on this, but it's just to have one global standard around what's a good project. What's a good carbon removal or carbon avoidance project? because there is no standard today. There's many, many standards. China has a standard, Europe has a standard, US has a standard. There's a voluntary market standard, which we and others have been trying to develop very hard. If we can agree on a standard, I think the money can flow much, much faster. And by the way, it's great for exchanges because you thrive on commoditized product, right? As long as there's a standard, then you can trade it in volume, transparently, liquid, 100% supportive of what you're doing. And I know it goes the other way. Well, let's just agree these standards and get going.
That's great. You know, that adds one more thing that on our to-do list together, the two exchanges and fostering that collaboration, and hopefully we can arrive in some commonality. It has been the most fascinating discussion, and unfortunately time has run out, but I do want to thank all three panelists for giving us a lot of food for thought. Certainly a great way to start the day here in FII, and I look forward to continuing all this exciting discussion in the future. So can I ask the audience to give a big round of applause to our three panelists?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Bonnie, Mr. Mohammed, Daryl, Bill. Now, Bonnie has a quick announcement to make, a special announcement to all of our guests today.
Yes, I do have an announcement to make. Today is a special day. We just announced that we are opening an office in Riyadh, but it is also a very special day for a very special person. It's the 70th birthday of our chairman, Carlson Tong, and he has decided to celebrate it in this wonderful city of Riyadh. So, many happy returns, Carlson. Can I start a tradition or a new tradition of singing Happy Birthday in Riyadh? So I don't know how to sing it in the Riyadh version, but happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to Carlson, birthday to you. You are now 70 years young, Carlson. And yeah, thank you.